All right, so here's a quick magic trick that I like. Pick a card, any card, and this is from Dan Gilbert's Stumbling Upon Happiness. All right, so pick a card, memorize your card, and remember it. And then I'm going to do a little distraction here. All right, you got your card? Okay. All right, so a lot of what I'm talking about has to do with how you view the world and the window sort of through which you see the world. Is it rainy, or is it clear and bright and clean? What's the lens through which you see the world? What is the window through which you see the world? Because the lens, the window, affects everything you are, everything you do, everyone you relate to. So the borders of the window are defined by your emotion, your thoughts, your values, and your past experiences. And most of the learning that you do takes place within these borders. And what I'm asking you to do is to get comfortable in your discomfort and step outside of those borders to take and learn new ways of viewing the world. New ways that have been proven to be to your benefit. All right, is your card gone? Voila! Magic. Magic in a static PowerPoint presentation. Your card's gone, right? Some people say, no, it's not gone. The king's still there. Well, king of what? All right, so how did I do that? So here's a slide-by-slide or side-by-side comparison. So here's the first slide, all the cards on the first side, which are not the same as the cards on the second slide. So any card you picked on the first slide does not appear on the second slide. And the reason I throw that in there is to point out that the rational mind relies on shortcuts. The brain is a cognitive miser. It's always trying to conserve energy by taking shortcuts. It makes a lot of assumptions. And the fancy name for these shortcuts is heuristics. But we assume a lot about the world. And then we go, oh, that's magic, or that's a miracle. Well, maybe in some cases it is, but in most cases it's just the brain being lazy to an extent. And my son's really into magic right now, so I've had a lot of fun kind of learning from him, as well as teaching him about visual attention, visual perception, and what the mind is looking for in order to fool the mind. So one of the things that I want to do, one of the messages I want to get out there is, I want to teach you what these shortcuts are that your mind is taking so that you're aware of it when it's happening. And you can choose whether or not you want that shortcut or not. All right, briefly a little bit about the human brain, because this just is awe-inspiring to me. But the brain is the most complex system known to humankind. There's over 100 billion neurons or brain cells in the brain. Each one of those has roughly tens of thousands of connections to other brain cells, which means there are more connections in your head than there are stars in the universe. And the fact that we can sit here and have a conversation, or that I can teach and you can learn these complex ideas, is mind-boggling to me. And probably the greatest proof I could offer up of the existence of a higher power, that it just doesn't seem possible to me that this brain, this magnificent organ, developed by chance. Well, in any case, that's another discussion for another time. All right, so let me show you what a healthy brain looks like. And these are brain scans from Daniel Amen, a great researcher who does a lot of SPECT brain scans. So this isn't a picture of, it's not like a photograph of the brain. This is actually tracking the blood flow through different areas of the brain. So it looks like a normal brain because blood is getting to all areas of the brain. So this over here is looking at the brain from the top down, as if you were a bird looking down on the brain or the person. This is the brain as seen from the side. Your nose would be right here. Your eyeball would be right here. And this is the brain as seen from the front. So it looks pretty good. It looks like a normal brain because blood is getting to all areas. So let me contrast that with a brain that doesn't look so good so you can get an idea. So again, this isn't as seen from the bottom. So if you're looking from your feet up towards your brain, and this is an optimistic brain, so this is a healthy brain. And then this is a pessimistic brain or depressed brain over here. So you see these areas where there's holes, or it looks like there's holes? If you were to open that person up and take that brain out, that brain would look, this brain would look just like this brain to the human eye. The difference is there's no blood getting to these areas that look like gaping holes. And if there's no blood getting to these areas of the brain, guess what? Those areas don't work. There's no oxygen, there's no glucose getting to these areas, and therefore it has dramatic effect on how we behave, think, and feel. So this is a depressed, pessimistic brain, loss of blood flow to the prefrontal cortex as well as these areas here. So a lot of what I'm talking about has a physiological basis, and we didn't know this stuff 20 years ago. In fact, psychology and psychiatry are the last professions to actually see the organ that we work on in all of medicine. And we're just beginning to have tools in the past 20 to 30 years that allow us to look at the brain, a live, functioning brain under different conditions, in different ways. And one of the things that we've found recently, we used to think that there was just one reservoir of emotion in us. It's not literal, it's figurative. But we thought that the emotions that we had, both negative and positive, were contained in the same reservoir. And what we found in recent research is that's not the case. In fact, we've got two separate reservoirs of emotion, one for positive emotions, one for negative emotions, and they're separate and unrelated, largely unrelated, which is really interesting to me. Number one, both positive and negative emotions have a purpose, which we knew the purpose of negative emotions on an evolutionary scale. We didn't have a clue what the purpose of positive emotions were until about 5 or 6 years ago, thanks to the work of largely of Barbara Fredrickson at UNC Chapel Hill. So positive affect or positive emotion, to me the goal is happiness. The overarching goal of our life in general, for you, for me, for everyone, is happiness. And again, this is a debate to go down a different time, but it gets into moral imperatives, it gets into psychological well-being, and happiness to me seems to be the primary goal of our lives. And again, I'll get into this more down the road. But happiness in general, or positive emotions, they broaden and build. So they broaden the thought processes, or they broaden the ways in which you can think. So they allow you to think outside the box. They also help you to build more resiliency. So when you've got positive emotion in your bucket, it stays there until you need to share it to help out a loved one of your own. So it gives you these enduring resources you can use to help out others. And then happiness also allows us to act in new ways. So if you think about Brett Favre on the football team, on the football field, one of the best quarterbacks ever. To me, anyone that is creating on the fly in a sport, say a midfielder or a striker in soccer, or a quarterback or running back or wide receiver in football, they have to maintain positive emotion during the game when they're in, because that's their best shot at creating on the fly. And you can see Brett Favre smiling a lot of times in football games, really intense, high-stakes games, and he looks like he's out there having a great old time. Well, that's part of the reason for his success. Because he can smile in the game, it allows his mind to come up with new creative things to do when the play is on. So if you want to become your best in some of these high-stakes, high-performance athletic situations, you want to make sure that you've got an awareness of your emotions.